Hello, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you and I can see you.
Okay, fantastic. How are you?
Man, if I was any better, I'd be illegal. And I say that because anybody who's having fun, somebody's trying to make a law against them. So,
I hear that.
anybody, I mean, listen, Samantha, there are a lot of fun haters in this country. And I'm trying to make my way toward fun, but every time I do, they're putting a paywall there or they're putting some kind of regulation there. And I just want to have some fun and carry on, but I can't. I got struggle. I got struggle with that. Then all I can do is just dream about having fun.
There you go. Good attitude.
See, I tied that in there because it's a sharp mind tied in dream with this because we'd be talking about dreams, one of my favorite subjects. And Samantha Fey, before we get going, I want you to introduce yourself to the Edge audience that's watching the program. They send questions in through our chat, which is on the website, and we'll ask you those as we go along. But go ahead and introduce yourself to them, and we'll get going.
Sure. So I'm Samantha Fey, and I've written a book called The Awake Dreamer, Lucid Dreaming, Astral Travel, and Mastering the Dreamscape. I also host two podcasts, Psychic Teachers and Enlightened Empaths, and I love to teach people about tuning into their intuition and working with crystals and dreams to just really make your life more fun and enhance our spiritual path.
Hmm. Well, all worthy goals that I can tell from that. Uh, is when you talk about intuition, it's usually kind of tied to woman's intuition. Now, men, we get hunches, I think. So is that the same thing?
Yeah, I really think it is. Really, what I'm passionate about is kind of destigmatizing that word, and helping people not see it as like a flashing neon sign, tarot reader inside. I want everyone to understand that we all have this sixth sense, and you can call it intuition, you can call it a hunch, a gut feeling. Doesn't matter what label you put on it. We all have that, and I feel that we've all experienced that. You get hunches that later prove true. And I'm really passionate about teaching people how to listen to that because I think that's really our soul trying to tell us where to go and what to do in our life.
Mm-hmm. So are you suggesting that we get or messages are being sent, whether or not we hear them? Are you suggesting that messages are being sent?
Yes, yes. I think that we are getting messages all the time. But as you were saying when we started off, it's hard to have fun lately. I think that's because we're all so overworked and stressed out, and we're told to just go, go, go and do, do, do. And we're distracted by AirPods in our ears and bosses emailing us and text messages. I think it's very hard to really actually listen to that inner voice that's telling you what you need to be doing. And sometimes we confuse it with fear, we confuse it with those anxiety thoughts. And so that's why I think it's really crucial to start to learn how to remove all those distractions from your life whenever and however you can. And I think dreams is one way that we can do that because sometimes when we're not getting the message during the day, it'll come to us at night when we're sleeping.
Mm-hmm. So if are you suggesting that if the message comes to us during the day and the noise around us is distracting us away from that message, then we're likely to get the same message again through a dream?
If it's something important. Like, for example, I had to go to the DMV a couple of months ago to get that gold star on my license. Have you done that yet?
No,
We all have to do it by the new year. Did you know that?
did not. Maybe I have to check though. Is it a little star?
It's a little star. It's called a real driver's license. You have to get verified.
Everybody in the
So
country's.
I'm
Oh, I
gathering
got
up.
that. I got it. I got it.
All right, you're good to go. I've been renewing mine online, so I
Okay.
was not good to go. So I was gathering up like my birth certificate, I don't know, a vial of DNA blood, everything that they need. And I kept hearing in my head, don't forget your checkbook, don't forget your checkbook. And I was like, who needs a checkbook these days? Like nobody pays by check anymore. And so I got in the car and I heard it again, get your checkbook. And I thought, oh, you're the one who always teaches people how to listen to that little voice. Ran inside, got my checkbook. And when I got there, they said, do you have a cashier's check or a check? That's all we take. I was so surprised and I was glad. Something that's pretty trivial like that would not pop up again in your dreams. Don't
Mm-hmm.
forget your checkbook at the
Mm-hmm.
DMV tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something really, really important, if you're struggling, should I stay in this job? Should I leave this job? Should I stay in this relationship? Or what's blocking me from attracting a relationship? Or if you have a health issue that doctors are having a hard time diagnosing or you're not sure how to deal with, those important messages, if we're not hearing them during the day, will often come to us in a dream.
Mm. So that sounds like there's some tenacity behind the sender. Like this message has got to get to its intended recipient. And I think it kind of bodes well for us if that's the case, but that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And I think sometimes those senders can be our guides, our higher self, but I think very often they are our loved ones on the other side who are still watching out for us and hoping that we're doing well and wanting us to make the best decisions that we can,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Um, do do messages only come from the good side?
Well, I think for the most part they do, but there are a lot of cases. I have a whole chapter in the book on scary dreams and nightmarish experiences. And throughout the centuries and ages and across cultures, there have been stories of shadowy like beings coming to us when we're dreaming, of the hag syndrome where people have that image, they wake up and they can't move their body, they're in sleep paralysis, and they all swear that they see this hideous looking older woman they call a hag who's sitting
Mm-hmm.
atop their chest, kind of stealing their energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think there are some scary things that can happen. People like Dion Fortune or Ted Andrews tell a lot of stories of people who are into all sorts of weird negative stuff who can send negative energy to an enemy through the dream state. So it can get really weird. But for the most part, I think I'd say 99% of the dreams are positive.
Mm-hmm. What about those folks, and really including myself, that have recurring dreams? Is that because we're refusing the message?
It depends. I mean, sometimes we have recurring dreams because it's a symbol of something. For example, a really common recurring dream many people have is they're walking through their house and they find a room they didn't know about. And they're looking in the dream, they're like, how could I not know I had this whole section of the house? And that's a recurring dream that many experience because it's about expanding your consciousness, or it's trying to tell you that you're seeking something. I hate to quote Bono here, but you still haven't found what you're looking for. So that can be a
Mm-hmm.
common recurring dream. Some people have had precognitive dreams that recur because they're trying to warn them of something coming up.
Okay, so let me try that now. We've got this interview. The title of it is Lucid Dreaming. What makes what's the difference between a dream and a lucid dream?
So a regular dream can be where it's just your brain processing your day and trying to get through some stressors and reprogram some images you've encountered during that day. A lucid dream is when you become awake and aware in the dream state. So that's when you're having a dream and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm dreaming right now. And so it's very fascinating because when people do become lucid in their dreams, they're able to heal a lot of old stuff. They can work on nightmares they've been having or recurring dreams, like you were saying. It usually happens to people who are very creative or who tend to be very good meditators or daydreamers who really are using their right brain a lot. And it also is indicative of an expanded consciousness and becoming more awake and aware on your own spiritual path during the day.
Mm-hmm. So I try to remember my dreams when I can, and really the only ones that I seem to remember are the ones just before I wake up. But I have to really focus on it before the day's activities just evaporates the thing. But that didn't happen today. So I'm coming tonight here with this interview with a dream, which to me, I can't, Samantha, I can't get the message out of it. Okay. And so here it is. Okay. So I feel like I should write LOL here or say it, but so I'm at like a car quest auto parts store, and all the parts are missing off the shelf. And the boss comes in, he wanted to know where all the parts was. Well, either I and some other people must have sent him back. So maybe I worked there or not, but I was kind of laying low because I thought, oh man, I got caught sending all these parts back. Okay, so that's kind of that. But then two, four groups of two people come in, but in this door, but they weren't people. They were people in gorilla outfits. They were clearly in outfits, and one of them, they looked like a female and a male. One of them had a little baby gorilla, and one of them had a bushy hair. And I remember him distinctly saying that gorilla, that ape is his name is Bush. But I've been, they were obviously in a suit, so I can't get a message out of that. It's so bizarre and it's twisted. It doesn't make any sense. So is that a dream that has yet to be interpreted? Or is it a filler of some sort? Or is it some jokester putting stuff in the dream just to screw things up?
I think it's symbolic. So there's two ways to interpret dreams. You can look at what the standard symbols mean, right? So a car and car parts, it typically represents our body and the parts that make our body work. And a gorilla represents, believe it or not, gorillas are very family oriented. They're very loyal. They kind of tend to travel in family groups. They're very, very strong. And so someone masking themselves as a gorilla in a gorilla family means that someone's presenting themselves to you and they're not what they seem to be.
Mm.
And there's something missing. Maybe there's an issue with health that's talking about. However, the other way to interpret dreams is to look at what all of those parts mean to you. So I'm going to assume that you love cars. So cars to you and car parts and going to a car store is probably going to mean something very different than it would to me. Like if I have to go to auto parts,
Mm-hmm.
it's awful for me. I have to go right up to the sales guy and say, here's exactly what I need. Help me show me where it is and find it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be different for you. So I would ask you, what do cars mean to you? Is it a passion of yours? Is it something, do you enjoy going there?
Well, I know a lot about cars, and if I was to go into a parts place, I would
Be
probably
very comfortable.
I would educate whoever I was talking to. Really, it's kind of like, hey, this is a true story. So, we went to the Indianapolis 500, my wife and I, and they just rolled out this truck called the Chevy Colorado, and there was one sitting there. Well, I was thinking about buying that particular truck. I think it was 2015, and so there's all these guys from GM and salespeople and stuff, and a guy comes walking up and he want to look at the truck, and he asks him a question, and they go, well, we're really not sure. And I go, well, let me tell you about the horsepower. It's got 306 horsepower. It's got an 8-speed transmission, and it's dual lined underneath the truck. So I give him quite the education. So I guess you could say from that standpoint, but I do agree that I guess if we look a little deeper than those ridiculous dreams, I mean, I don't think that they don't mean anything, but it just seems like in the supernatural world, there are entities known as tricksters. And so I got to watch that. But hey, we're getting questions. So let's go ahead and take a couple and we'll get back to our conversation. All right. Doug in Virginia says, Samantha, what are daydreams?
Oh, daydream. It makes me sad when people ask that because as kids, I feel that we all used to daydream, right? When you're sitting in math class and your teacher's droning on and you look out the window and you would just daydream. Your mind would wander. You might have a fantasy about fighting in Star Wars, or you might role play over how are you going to ask that girl to the dance. That's a daydream. And, studies show that adults don't daydream anymore. We just don't. We have too many distractions. When we're, waiting in line, if we're stuck on the subway, we can open up our phone and look at TikTok or any of the social media out there. However, if we do take time in our day to daydream, to allow our mind to just wander and go in a pleasant way. Usually
Mm-hmm.
when our mind wanders, we're thinking,
Mm-hmm.
did I pay that bill? Did I do that? Did I call that person back? But if you let yourself wander in a pleasant way, it does so much good, not only for your stress levels and your mood, but also for your ability at night to recall your dreams.
Mm-hmm. All right. So in your book, you do talk about precognitive dreams. And when I saw that word, it reminded me of the there's a Tom Cruise movie in it, and
Oh yeah, where
they're
he
the
they can get into people's dreams.
yeah. Well, there's these people they were called precogs, and they were able to see crimes in the future, and so they were called precognitive, and so they actually made a whole a police unit out of these precognitive people. But has precogs solved crimes or
Yeah, there
prevented
have
them?
I don't know about preventing them. Precognitive dreams, they can be involved in crime issues, but usually a lot. I have worked with police and some private investigative cases, and it's very hard until they really get to know you and trust you. It's very hard for them to take that seriously, and you can't blame them. They have to, they're working on taxpayer money. But there are cases, I mean, if you just look at 9/11 and you look at all the people who had precognitive dreams about that, or the children. I mean, there's been books written, so I don't want to belabor it, but there's been so much research on people and children who dreamt of like two mountains and planes going into them, or two steel rectangles and planes crashing into them. So oftentimes when there's major events, we will have precognitive dreams about that. Typically, though, the research and my personal experience shows that our precognitive dreams are usually about our own personal lives. And so if there's something major coming up, usually if you have had a lifetime of following your
Mm-hmm.
hunches and really relying on that aspect of
Mm-hmm.
yourself, you will be able to have a precognitive dream that gives you a warning about it.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the stories I start off in the book telling, I was married to a sergeant for 20 years. And in the summer, or the late spring, early summer of 2005, almost every night for about 2 weeks, I had this recurring dream that he was shot in the neck right here. And on July 29th of that year, he was shot in the neck right there above his bulletproof vest. And so I knew that I'd been having these precognitive dreams, and there's very little that you can do about it. I told him to be careful to wear his vest. I had an Archangel Michael medallion blessed for him to wear, and I know all of that did help him and help him eventually survive that, but it took a long, long time. So it's difficult with precognitive dreams because often there's very little you can do. I don't know if you agree with this or not. This is just my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think that some things in our life are fated. They're just part of our destiny, and there's not a lot we can do about them. But
Mm-hmm.
the precognitive dreams, to me, they make me feel better about that. Like, okay, I have free will about this. This is destined, but I was warned about it. So here's what I can do. So when I had those warning dreams, I did do a lot. I made sure he was vigilant and wore his vest, made sure he wore his blessed, and he's such a guy's guy. Like, to get him to wear a necklace was not easy.
Mm-hmm.
But I made sure, and I said a lot of prayers, and a lot of miracles did happen that night that contributed to him surviving that.
Oh, okay. This is from Omega. It says, have you seen the spirits all in black robes or in gimp garb moving our perception bubbles on our back? What are they?
I have not seen that, but I do a lot of protection stuff for myself. I do a lot of prayer work. So luckily, I have not had those type of negative experiences. I would recommend that listener check out Heidi Hollis, who's done a lot of work with that negative aspect: Hat Man, Shadow Man, Grinning Man. I don't know why they have all these strange names,
Mm-hmm.
but I try really hard, and I have a whole chapter in the book on psychic protection and things you can do to protect yourself from those negative parasites. Most people, have you ever seen a little shadow person, like a little shadow thing kind
Mm-hmm.
of peeking around the corner?
I have. Mm-hmm.
Okay, most people have that experience, and there's a lot of, again, nobody knows what they are. I think Rosemary Ellen Guiley probably researched them the most of any paranormal researcher, but we still don't know what they are. But most people tend to think that they're kind of like droplets or residue of
Mm-hmm.
anxiety and fear and stress that we're carrying around with us.
Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend that you work on reducing any anxiety, fear, and worry in your life. And hopefully those things will go away.
What is it about this? Some people have what's called a shared dreaming experience. What is that?
Yeah, that's a really cool phenomenon. I've experienced it a couple of times. And that's when you have a dream and your friend has the same exact dream on the same night. And it makes you wonder, were we somewhere together? How does that happen? I talk about this very mundane dream for me in a way. I was walking through, it looked like a Penn Station, with the subway
Mm-hmm.
tiles, like an arch of a subway. And I was walking through this Penn Station like archway with my guide, I believe, on my side. And we're just walking, and there's people coming and going. It's very, very crowded, like a train station would be. And my good friend, who I also worked with, is coming towards me and she's walking with her guide. And I just waved and said hello to her and she waved back. That was it. Nothing, to write home about, as they say. And the next morning, I'm at the copier at work and I'm like, hey, I had a dream about you. And as I'm telling her the dream, she's finishing my sentences.
Mm,
She had the same exact dream, remembered seeing me and waving to me.
mm.
So that's a trivial example of a shared dream experience, but I think it does show that something different is happening very often when we sleep than just having weird random dreams like the majority of our dreams are.
The the process of a dream is that like a cloud? Is it like, I mean, people say there's information stored on synops, and your brain supposedly takes them and makes a movie out of them. But is it more? Is a dream more of like a cloud kind of thing coming in, rather than, say, like in the background here, little electrical sparks that our brain interprets and makes a movie out of and relays it to us as a dream? But is it more like a cloud thing that comes in, or is it a sort of bioelectrical, or what is it?
I think that the majority of dreams we have that are symbolic, like your car parts gorilla dream, I think that's your brain working out some things going on in your life that they're just trying to use symbolism to get you to pay attention to, right? And I think that is totally happening here. But I think when we have these precognitive experiences, shared dream experiences, these experiences where we encounter our loved ones who have died, I think those are really soul travel experiences where our soul has left our body and we are in this liminal space.
Mm-hmm.
Is very often what many people call it.
There's something out there called they just had it for kids. It was like, I can't remember what it was, but like they just die in the night. I can't remember what that was called. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
like an aneurysm. But are you talking about that group of boys who all died in their sleep?
no, no. There's some kind of childhood death, and it's like a syndrome. But anyway,
Infant death syndrome.
yeah, right. Okay, now they've kind of moved that to adults now in the last year or so. So now there's this sort of adult thing going on, and a lot of it's occurring. But if a person dies in the middle of one of those dreams, do you think that that is their life? They're locked into that, then they will actually become that because they actually have nowhere else to go but in that dream state, and wherever that dream came from, go that way and live that life or have that experience.
I mean, possibly that could happen, but science has, busted that myth where they have been able to prove that if you do dream that you die, you don't always die, that you can wake up. In fact, the new lucid dream research that they're doing recently, they're able to show how people can communicate with blinking their eyelids to the dream researchers. So I don't think that's really true. So if you're afraid of those type of scary dreams, again, usually that's symbolic of something ending in your life. But maybe for those people who die in their sleep, maybe
Mm-hmm.
that is how it happened for
Mm-hmm.
them. But it's not always. We used to hear, remember, like when you're telling scary stories around the campfire, and you'd hear, "Oh, if you dream that you die in your sleep, you're going to die." But
Mm-hmm.
they've been able to
Mm-hmm. Well,
bust that.
actually, I was trying to go a little bit deeper down, and I agree that should have been another question as well. But I was suggesting that if you, not that you dream that you die, but you die while you're dreaming, is that does your spirit or whatever conscious lock hold of that, almost like being in another dimension, almost like the key that unlocks the door to another dimension, because your dimension you're in, you're not in it anymore. You're going to go somewhere. I'm just saying, do you think you could end up in that dream?
It could be. I mean, there's who's the physicist? His last name is Wolf, and he thinks that every time we have a lucid dream, we're experiencing a parallel life. So, I mean, who knows where we're really going? You can, I always say you can put all the labels that you want on it. At the end of the day, we don't know. Over 80% of people that have been studied and asked and surveyed this question have said they have met a loved one on the other side. Well, where is that we're having these meetings and these encounters? Is it a parallel life? Is it a liminal state? Is it
Mm-hmm.
a level of heaven and entrance to the other side? At the end of the day, we don't know right now, but we do know that these experiences are happening.
Mm-hmm. Now, Haven't people actually created inventions in their dreams?
Yeah, there's so many amazing stories of that. I mean, Albert Einstein says he came up with the theory of relativity in a dream. There have been the periodic tables that we all had to memorize in high school that came in a dream. We've the sewing machine came in a dream. He Elias Howe dreamt that he was trying to figure out a way for the needle to catch the thread on a sewing machine, and he had a dream that a bunch of cannibals were attacking him, and they all had these spears, but he noticed there were holes in their spears. And that one dream of seeing that hole in the spear showed him that's how he had to make the threading needle in the sewing machine.
Mm.
There's been so much literature that has come to us in a dream. Billy Joel just said all the music he's ever created came in a dream, and
Mm-hmm.
Keith Richards actually recorded the opening chords of Can't Get No Satisfaction while he was sleeping and dreaming. He
Mm-hmm.
fell asleep with the recorder on and woke up and heard those first notes and went on to write that. People probably know that famous story of Paul McCartney, who dreamt the whole melody to Yesterday and went around to all his friends asking, like, who did I steal this from? And he didn't. He dreamt the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. So as you see in the background here, we have a dream catcher. So it seems to me that the indigenous people certainly believed in dreams, and they put a lot more emphasis on dreams, and they try to really bring it into the natural with their creation of their dream catchers. Do you think they work?
Yes, I do. And I think it could be because dream catchers work. It could also be because of the intention you put behind it, so that every time you're seeing that dream catcher hanging over your bed, you are subliminally telling your subconscious, I'm going to be safe and protected in my dreams. So I don't know if the dream catcher itself works or if our mind and the power of our mind is working there.
Can when we get ready to go to bed, can have you ever had enough focus to where you could direct the type of dream or what you're going to dream about before you go to bed?
Yes, but not that night. So, something I always tell people is when working with our dreams, we have to be really, really patient. And one thing I do that really does help if I have a question and I just cannot see a solution or an outcome or a way forward with that problem I'm dealing with, I'll write it down on a piece of paper and I'll tuck it underneath my pillow. And then every night I'll kind of read it, I'll say my prayers, I'll ask for help in the dreams with that. And I keep I keep a dream journal where I write down what I remember each night. And I've noticed by looking at patterns in that dream journal, it takes about 2 weeks of doing that every night, looking at that question, asking for a dream on that specific area of my life. But I will have a very profound dream that helps me figure out my way forward.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't I mean, maybe there are some people. I mean, Stephen LeBerge, who's like the father of lucid dreaming, he probably can do that. But I think for most of us, it takes us about 2 weeks of really focused thought.
Mm. So I've come to learn to accept the exciting journey that comes when you're at a Y in your life. There's a decision that you have to make or a doctor's report you have to get. You're waiting for something to come back from the lab, or you're out and you're doing something. One of those happened this year. I was out in the middle of a lake in a little boat with a little motor because I didn't want to pay. I just want to go fishing, man. That's all I want to do. I didn't want to take a giant boat out there for $300 an hour. So I got a little John boat looking thing. Well, the motor quit. It was out in the middle of the lake, huge lake. It was laying between the lakes, man. And so I thought, I didn't get mad. I called them and they go, hey, we'll be out there. They never came out. So I knew I had to get this boat. But anyway, I'm saying all that to say, when the motor quit, I immediately was able to switch to, wow, a whole chapter is getting ready to be written. A new turn is getting ready to be taken. And I've learned to accept those and to see them more now as an adventure. And, you might get a negative doctor report back if you're looking at the doctor's thing. But in a lot of the situations where you go here or you go there, this can happen or that can happen. If you kind of embrace those, I don't know if you alter the outcome by not being so negative and say, oh man, I'll never get back. We're stuck here forever. The boat's going to sink. The big fish is going to come up and swallow the whole boat, which is normal for the human to process traumatic information and events, because that is traumatic. You know, you're stuck. There's nobody around you, and it's 2 miles that way. So, but anyway, it was exciting because I learned to accept now that, hey, something seems like it's bad. You know, the phone's getting ready to ring or this or that. There's an adventure there that something good could happen. And you've got a whole new chapter of adventurous things going to happen. The outcome of that eventually was, just to let you know, I rode that little boat a little further around the thing, and this guy comes by with his big super boat. And one thing, guys, I know about boats is guys are power guys. Okay, when it comes to boats, we want big motors and we want the boats to go fast. And I knew that he wouldn't like nothing better than to hook up to my little boat and tow me back to the marina. And he did, about 50 miles an hour. I was getting airborne. But so anyway, so we do have these things that happen to us that I think we just need to, part of the positivity kind of thing. It's probably nothing to do with dreaming here, I guess, but everything that happens to you isn't going to necessarily have a negative outcome. But sometimes we almost try to initiate it, like we look at the news to see how bad it is. You know, sometimes we almost want to initiate. I don't know why. Why do we gravitate toward those negative tendencies on the situation?
I think it's preparation. It's the same reason why so many women love to watch Dateline and 48 Hours and all that true crime. We're trying to prepare ourselves, for us being in that actual outcome so that it won't be as frightening if it ever happens. I think it's the same with all the negative thoughts. We'd rather be prepared for the negative than let down by the hope. And so I think that is one of the trickiest parts of being a human, is trying to deal with having hope and having expectations, but also knowing that into every life a little rain must fall, as Longfellow said, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have these negative experiences. But I always wonder, like, if you and I've been there, I've been stranded on a boat before, and it's a terrifying feeling. If you were sitting there going, well, this sucks, I'm going to be out here for 5 hours, I'm going to have to, drink my own urine to save my life or what have you. If you had done that, I wonder if that bigger boat would have found you, or if you would have had to wait.
Mm-hmm.
I used to, when my kids were little, we went to the beach every day during the summer. And my friend who had kids the same age as mine, every day that we met at the beach, she brought this jellyfish spray. So like if any of the kids got stung by a jellyfish, she'd be prepared. Well, her kids got stung by jellyfish 3 or 4 times, over the course of us going to the beach all of those times. My kids never got stung by a jellyfish. I think when we prepare for the negative, we create space for the negative.
Mm. Um, Speaking of past sages, didn't Saint Augustine have some sort of dream? Do you know about that?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite stories. St. Augustine was having this letter correspondence with his good friend Gennadius. This is in 415 AD. And Gennadius was a well-known physician. And, St. Augustine was really, really strict. I mean, he was one of the reasons why a lot of priests are celibate, very rigid rule guy. And I was very surprised to read these letters where he and his friend are really questioning, is there life after death? It'd kind of be like Pope Francis saying, do we go anywhere when we die? And yet there he was having those questions. And so Gennadius had this dream, and it recurred 2 more nights after the first dream, where he woke up and saw this glowing being in his room. And the glowing being he saw as a man who was an angel, but he didn't have wings. And he said to Gennadius, basically, I've heard your discussion about, is there life after death? And he says, where are you right now? And he says, I'm in my room. And he says, where's your body? And he says, it's right there. It's on my bed. And he said, are your eyes closed? And he said, yes. And he said, then with what eyes are you seeing me? And he said, look upon your body. He said, your eyes are closed, your mouth is closed, and yet you're seeing me and you're hearing me. And he said, so never doubt that there is life after death. And he repeated he returned 2 more times in these lucid dream experiences, and was able to show him different levels of the other side and where we go. And it really had a profound impact on St. Augustine. And I think all of us today, because that's a really amazing experience.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that is a great story. There is in the Bible. There's a lot of um, a lot of information about dreams, and let me pull something up real quick and see if we can look at them. One this is here from Numbers 12:6. It says, "I the Lord will make myself known unto you in a vision and speak unto him in a dream." Right there clearly says that God is going to, and really, Samantha, those, whether the guy in a monkey suit or whether I'm going to invent something, I don't know what the outcome would be. But if I felt like God was speaking to me in a dream, that I feel like my very life could be at stake. It seems like it's such a momentous thing. I'm trying, I would say, differentiate between God speaking to us in a dream than say, like you would suggest somebody was trying to help us, or an angel's trying to give us direction, or some entity is trying to give us information how to invent something, which are sort of um, not so not such a event that would have a unlimited outcome, say like your eternal being. You know what I'm saying? So there is that, and then there's one more, and and we'll come back to this, but this is in the book of Acts, and kind of relates to today. But it says in Acts 2:17, "I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams." And again, it appears that God is saying that dreams is part of His design for us as humans. So we should be reticent really to pay more attention to them, because we don't know when those God dreams are coming to us, bringing us information, say, versus, like I say, the other sort of the helpful dreams. So I'm going to ask you then: have you ever felt like you were getting a dream that was on a more celestial, eternal scale than than your normal type of dreams you normally get? Have you ever been able to differentiate?
Well, I've had many dreams where I'm talking around like a little conference table with my guides and angels. But if I had a dream where I felt as though God were talking to me, I would be like Mike Myers in Wayne's World. I'm not worthy. I don't know that I could handle it. So I do think that God picks select people, to have those dream experiences. But I have had many dreams where I'm talking to my guides about my life plan, my soul purpose, and what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. And I do think most of us have those dreams, even if we don't remember them consciously.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wonderful story. It's not in the Bible, but it's an old legend where God is talking to all the new souls that are getting ready to be born, and he's wishing them luck on earth. And the new souls start to cry and they say, "God, we'll miss you. We don't want to leave. We don't want to go down to earth." And he says, "Oh, never fear." He said, "Every night when you sleep, your soul returns to me and we get to visit once more." And I just love that idea that every night when we're dreaming, we're actually visiting, an aspect of heaven.
Mm-hmm. Um, Now, some people don't dream at all. Now, what's the problem? Have they? Uh, is that just a random chance, or is it maybe? And I'm not saying nothing personal against anybody that's not having dreams, but is it something that they're unknowingly doing, maybe, that is blocking the ability to dream?
Yes. Yeah. Well, luckily, science has proven that everybody dreams. Even if you don't remember it, you are dreaming. In fact, I came across several studies that said only psychopaths don't have dreams, but
Wow.
everybody else does have, we do dream. We spend it, I think it's 50% of the last 2 hours of your sleep cycle is nothing but dreams. So every time you hit that REM cycle, you are dreaming. The key is remembering them. So anyone who's very, very left brained, who's, has that engineer, sciencey, analytical side to them, they're going to have a much harder time remembering your dreams. And then just in terms of what's going on in our body, if you're really stressed out during the day, you're releasing a lot of cortisol, and cortisol will inhibit, too much cortisol will inhibit the brain's capacity to recall dreams.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a very analytical mind, if you don't have a big imagination, if you tend to be one of those black and white thinkers, yes or no, this or that, show me, I need to see it with my own eyes. If you don't believe in anything, you're going to have a much harder time remembering your dreams. But
Mm-hmm.
I do have an entire chapter in the book devoted just on how to remember your dreams. One of the easiest ones that I always tell people is just set your alarm an hour earlier than you have to wake up. So set two alarms. If you
Mm-hmm.
have to get up every day at 6 a.m.,
Mm-hmm.
set an alarm for 5 a.m. and then set an alarm for 6 a.m. When the 5 a.m. alarm goes off, don't hit snooze. Just let yourself fall back asleep till the 6 a.m. alarm goes off. And most people remember their at least one dream in that last hour of their sleep. And of course, the one everyone hates to hear, but if you do write down your dreams every day, even if you remember nothing, you can just write down the date, November 20th, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
I remembered nothing, but I woke up feeling such and such. Eventually, you will start to recall more.
Mm-hmm. Um, I see somebody in the live chat suggesting that calcification of the pineal gland can hinder the ability to recall dreams.
Yes.
What's the connection between the I said it.
Pineal.
I said it right the first time, but I'm a cowboy. I don't have to speak English. Um, what's the difference between that and what's the connection of that and dreams?
So the pineal gland is located where our third eye chakra is. It's right in the center of the brain, and so it does help not only dream recall, but it also helps with our intuition or our hunches. And so if that is blocked or if it's over calcified, it's going to be much harder to have that dream recall and to have those amazing insights during meditation. And unfortunately, there's so much fluoride in our water. We need the fluoride in our water, right? Or else we'd all walk around with yellow cavity ridden teeth. But that fluoride will calcify your pineal gland. So there are a lot of things you can do to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone can research how to decalcify a pineal gland. There are ways that you can do it. One of the easiest, though, and I have this in the book too, is where you just close your eyes, you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth, and with your eyes closed, you stare up. It kind of hurts a little. I mean, it's not painful, but it's kind of like you'll feel like a little tingling sensation, and that is said to really help awaken that pineal gland so that you can not only be more intuitive but remember your dreams more clearly.
Hey, side note question: is fluoride ever been approved by the FDA?
I don't know. I would assume it has, but I feel like you know the answer to that.
I do, and the answer is no. So hey,
Really?
yeah. So maybe they don't want us to have dreams, Samantha. Maybe they want to stop us from tapping into our true spiritual selves. And I think that's always been part of some overarching conspiracy, of which I am a purveyor of conspiracies and untruths on this program. So I can say that. I mean, my proof is I got kicked off of YouTube. So there you go. Now I'm on Rumble. But it just seems that I see a concerted effort to naturalize everything. In other words, there's nothing mystical. Dreams is just an organic bioelectrical operation that occurs. And I heard him say that the when you have a near death experience and you go through that light, they've got it down to a chemical. Oh well, there's this chemical that creates in your brain. It creates a white hole, and you're thinking that's a tunnel. I mean, they just try to normalize everything. But I don't think it's like that. The evidence around this world and all the different things don't show that's the case at all. There's a wide variety of supernatural things going on and realms and dimensions. Certainly, you mentioned Einstein. I think he certainly believed that. Maybe it's 13 dimensions, and it's kind of what I was alluding to with the dream question when I said, if you die, would you go into that dream? Because to me, a dream is another dimension. To me,
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't scientifically proven that, but my research, I'm looking into it.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people think that there's way more dimensions than we're aware of, and we don't know. Are these how many? Dolores can't. You've heard so many people say there are seven dimensions, there are 13, there are 24. We don't really know. I mean, we can speculate. Are these parallel lives? Is there a past, present, future, or is it all happening now? I mean, all of these things are aspects of spirituality that I love to study.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of love that we don't know. I love leaning into the mystery of it.
Yeah, I like the mystery of it too. That really keeps things exciting. Now, some people though, Samantha, some people turn to drugs like peyote and other substances uh, to get a higher experience. Is that dangerous, or have you done it yourself and you think it's innocuous?
I have not, I am so vanilla. I've never done any drug. I think it'd be really cool to try peyote or ayahuasca.
Hmm.
I think it'd be very interesting to have that experience. And looking at what they're doing now with the microdosing of what is it, psychedelics, I think that's really cool. We had a woman on our one of my podcasts, and she had lifelong chronic depression and swears that microdosing cured her. So
Hmm.
I have no experience of that. It's the whole throwing up thing that throws me. Have you heard about that? Have you
No,
done it?
no.
Okay, so supposedly when you take either of those two that you mentioned, ayahuasca, I know for sure, you vomit for a long time and then you have these visions. I
Wow.
don't I don't know. I don't want to sit out there. And I've heard stories where if you don't go with a really well-known person, like they'll take these women out into these deserts and then other things happen to them besides the wonderful experience.
Well,
So
I'm
I think
definitely
everyone has to research it carefully, um, and really study it.
well, I'm definitely staying away from ayahuasca because several people have said, even on this show, that they have these I guess day visions
Yeah.
of spiders crawling up along the wall and various creatures, hideous creatures. I don't want nothing to do with that. But here's a little kind of a factoid. This just come up in the news. Speaking of depressing news, Mexico, and this has to do with drug use. So Mexico has public service announcements showing video of strung out people in Pennsylvania and said if you do drugs, you're going to end up like this. And they just show driving through the street, Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, and they're just strung out. Just how it's how half clothed and tent cities and laying and seizures and isn't it just disgusting that another country would use our country in such a way? But in one way or another, there's a little bit of truth to that, and that is kids don't do drugs.
I used to teach at a community college, and I was teaching this class. I was teaching an English lit class, and a lot of the students there were either coming out of drug rehab or needing to be there. And I didn't know that at the time. And we were reading this short story on drugs. And I said, happy people don't need to get high. I thought that was such a simple statement, like such an obvious statement.
Mm-hmm.
And those students eviscerated me. They were like, what are you saying? Everybody does drugs, everybody gets high. And I said, well, I don't, and I'm a very happy person. I think if you're happy, you don't need that. And
Mm-hmm.
such pushback. And so I think all of those things that you're talking about, I mean, legalizing, was it Washington or Oregon who
Uh, I
legalized?
think it's Oregon.
Or yeah,
They're legalizing everything, I think.
yeah, it's just I just feel like, happy people don't need to get high. And so if we work on our inner joy, we won't have to have all of that. But I also feel that we're letting down so many people who are dealing with real mental health issues. And that's why they're turning to these medications to numb their own pain. So
Mm-hmm.
there's so much work to be done.
That kind of goes to our spiritual nature, Samantha. It seems that every person seems to have a like a hole in their system, and it's I think that hole is designed for, I don't want to say the God particle like the Hadron Collider type of thing, but a spiritual size of or void that we know that intrinsically all humans are aware of this void, and some of us don't have any information about the spiritual world of any kind, so we gravitate toward drugs or sex or hate, anger, violence, theft, things that instant gratification, and we try to fill that void, and that void can never be filled with those things. So the people that we see turning to these drugs, laying out in the street, they had that void, but the system is going to try to fill that void with a program, and it doesn't work. The recidivism rate of people in prison, if they turn to a sort of religious structure, is documented way less than those that go through just a program that says here's how you better yourself. But it seems to me that there is this soul, and that part of that is the search. Now, apparently, with your book, you're searching in the dream world. Maybe you can find some answers in there. Maybe you've experienced this. Maybe you've had a hole in your life. I've had it, maybe you still do. Maybe that whole, we start to fill it with the right things, and there's still some there that we're searching to fill the rest of it to have to make us feel complete. But maybe we're making progress because we're starting to feel it. But I'm just saying that seems to be a supernatural void that our spiritual self needs something other than programs and even good intentions to fill that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's something I think about a lot. There's another old legend that I think about a lot where all the gods and goddesses were standing on this mountaintop, and they were reveling over humans and how amazing we were and how much power we actually had. And the gods said, gosh, if humans realize how much power they have, they're going to overtake us. And so they said, let's hide this knowledge from them. And this one god was like, we'll hide it in the deepest part of the darkest ocean. And this other one said, no, they're really smart. They'll figure out a way to dive down and get it. And so this other god was like, well, we'll put it on the highest mountain. No, humans are smart. They'll find a way to climb that mountain. And it goes on and on like that. And finally, this goddess steps forward and she says, I know where we can hide humans' wisdom and innate love and magical power that they'll never find it. And they're like, where? And she says, we'll hide it in their hearts. And so I think that's why so many of the mystics and shamans and visionaries and poets through the ages have said everything is within. And yet here we are, and we're looking to all these outer things to fill it. And it's just it's kind of sad because really and truly the answers are within. And whether you find that through meditation, through prayer, through connecting with your inner spirit, through dreams, I don't think it matters as long as you find it. And I don't know that it's our purpose on earth in this lifetime to fill that void. I don't know if we can fill it here. I don't think this is a place where we're meant to be blissfully happy all the time. Mm-hmm. I think I call Earth a marathon. Mm-hmm. This is like a Ironman competition, where we're always working and seeking and growing and going. And so I think we can fill it, but not all the way. And I think that's okay. I think where the joy comes is in the attempt to fill it and what you learn about yourself as you try to fill that void.
You remind me of a story that's in the Bible where it says there was three men that were thrown into the fire, in this fire because the king didn't like them, and he was really mad at him. And so he said, "Man, crank up that fire 10 times hotter than it normally is," and he threw him in there, and then they're looking in the fire and they're walking around in the fire, and the king said, "Hey, he says to his guys, didn't I tell you to throw those 3 guys in the fire?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "Well, how come I see 4 guys in there?" Well, the fourth, I think was Jesus was in there. And it said when they come out, they didn't have the smell of smoke on them. So that tells me that we can go through trials in this life. And like you said, we're not going to have perfection and reach nirvana, but our ability to handle the fire, why aren't you totally bummed out because your car got repossessed? What's the matter? You didn't want your car? Or why aren't you upset because somebody said something nasty about you? Why don't you go get them? Why don't you reply? Like you say, those things are going to happen to you. But a positive response is a shocker because people expect the normal response. They expect to say, why don't you insult that person just insulted you? And he said, "No, I don't want to." And it's like, why not? You're supposed to. But that shock is what people need. They need to be shocked into knowing that you don't always have to repay evil for evil. That we're talking about that hole in the heart or wherever it is. It fills up a little bit with some good vibrations when you don't behave that way. So that doesn't mean you won't go through bad times, but how you handle them and what's in that void is going to get you through them.
Yeah, I agree. You've got to rise above it. But I'm also not the best Christian because I'm not necessarily about turning the other cheek always. I think when you encounter an evil, negative person, you just walk away. You just keep your distance, whether that negative person is in your family or at your work. I'm not a big fan of total absolute forgiveness without change. I think there has to be change before we turn that other cheek.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I'm certainly not sitting here saying open the prison doors, man, because, and that goes to the topic of judge not, but that's not what the Bible says, Samantha. It says judge not, lest ye be judged. For what manner you judge others, you're going to be judged. So when you do have to judge, you got to have a central truth foundation that to wherewith that you can judge the situation. Rather, because if you don't have all the information, say somebody you think somebody stole something from you, and you exact vengeance on them, and you find out it wasn't them. I mean, you judge them wrong. But if they did steal from you, then you judge them right. So I do
Right.
agree with you. But I'm definitely not going to open up a prison. People say you're not supposed to judge. And say, well, if we're not supposed to judge, then eliminate the juries and open the prison doors, man. Somebody's got to take care of this thing down here.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to be realistic about that. And that's where again everything comes back to balance, doesn't it? Where we've got to really be balanced about accepting the negative stuff that happens in our life, but not I don't think I think it's not realistic to think we can be positive all the time either, because sometimes really crappy stuff happens and you've got to allow yourself to be angry and sad and mad and justifiably upset about it and then move on to the
Mm,
positive.
mm,
But when something kind of bad happens, like your stranded boat story, who is it helping if you throw a huge temper tantrum and have a little freak out? It helps nobody, and certainly not that situation. So it's all about balance and
mhm,
really being aware throughout your day of your mood and how you're responding to
mhm,
situations. I just think our consciousness is so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit.
mhm. And I think that our words have power too. I
Yeah.
think that what you speak has a force to change nature or the direction. I know some people believe that there's a universe that listens to you, so you better watch what you say. You just might get what you say. But if your intention is, if you just start with the intention is, I'm going to try to make my life better. I'm going to try to make other lives better. But I agree with you again. I agree with you. They're going one day you're going to let loose. Okay, you're going to somebody's going to cut you off, and the bird's coming out. Okay, and but when the bird comes out, you know that when it doesn't register down the road. Oh, why did I do that? If that thought doesn't occur, then you're back in Cro-Magnon days. So you haven't evolved yet. But that you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So if you
I
don't,
do.
if after you do that, if it doesn't got a little something, say, pick on it.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel good. I live in the South now, but I lived up north my whole life. And we're very aggressive drivers up north. And I came down here and Southerners don't blow their horn. They certainly rarely give the bird. And I was like, what is this? And everyone drove so super slow. Like if it was 45, they're all going 35 to 40. I had such road rage and I was able to overcome that. It took me a long time, but I realized like beeping my horn or giving someone the look or, what have you, it doesn't make them feel good. And it certainly didn't make me feel good. So overcoming those things, I do think is a very important goal.
Mm.
But yeah, sometimes you're just going to get frustrated and that's okay too.
So conversely, I was in the Chicago area, and I think it was called Indianapolis Avenue. Them people was doing 100 miles an hour around there, man. Man, what's the speed limit on this highway? So yeah, I guess I kind of took my Midwestern driving, my okey doke driving, da 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 da. But up there, that it didn't hack it up there, man. You either hit the gas or you're gonna get run over
Or
up.
that's it. Yeah, yeah. My favorite thing is when I'm on I-95, once I leave the Virginia border, I know I can drive like I used to. And it's all the speed and you won't go. But yeah, I think it's important to learn how to kind of go with the flow with all of that and realize what I was realizing with my road rage. I had to start to say like, okay, what am I really mad about? What's making me mad? And I realized it was my issue with control. And I had no control over that person in front of me. Didn't matter if I beat my horn or I don't think I've ever flipped anyone off, but if I
Mm-hmm.
did, didn't matter. They were good. They'd go slower if I did that, right? Because
Okay.
they were in control. And so sometimes identifying those moments where you get super frustrated and you just want to scream and swear and lash out, those are actually some of our most instructive moments because it helps you realize what's blocking you. And I realized it was me needing to be in control of
Mm.
that situation.
Well,
And so once I recognized that and worked on it, it healed it beautifully.
all right. Let me just throw this out to the people that's watching because I can see them in the live chat. People in the live chat, if you've used the bird in your car, go ahead and say yes, you did, and we'll assume that you repented. But if you ever did that, if you brought out the bird, go ahead and just put a quick yes or no in the live chat, and I'll take a look at that. Now, speaking of our website here, Samantha, we have a question there: where do dreams come from? And the poll answers are from your own mind, another dimension, another time, the heavenly realm, another galaxy, the netherworld, or another you. And right now, of the respondents, 66% say that dreams come from your own mind, 13 say the heavenly realm, and about 9% said the netherworld. And I don't know, I don't even know what that even means, but it sounds crazy. I don't want to go to the no nether world. I don't think I got nothing good to eat down there. So, but it looks like they're saying your own mind. I would not be in that category. I don't think that I don't think it comes from our own mind. I think it comes from somewhere else.
I think like those de-stressor dreams that we have, you show up or your teeth fall out or you show up late for an exam, those typical dreams so many of us
Mm.
have. I do think that those come from our mind. I think it's the other dreams where we really can't explain how this is happening. I share a story there in the book where I had a dream that my mother-in-law visited me in my kitchen. And I knew I was dreaming, but I knew I was awake. And
Mm.
she was in the kitchen with her best friend. And my mother in law at that time had been deceased for 6 years. Her best friend was alive and well.
Mm.
And my mother in law said, tell Samantha what you told me. And the best friend said, I listened to you, to both of you ladies, and you're right. It is time for me to go. It is time for me to pass on. Everything will be better once I do. And in the dream, I was excited that she had agreed to finally pass on. Now, keep in mind, at the time, she was 65, which is very young.
Mm.
So I woke up from that dream and I was like, why? Why would we be talking her into crossing over? Why? It made no sense to me. And so I, told everyone in the family about that dream, and they were like, that makes no sense. She just retired. She and her husband bought a new house. She's excited for her grandchildren. Well, 6 months after that dream, she passed away in her sleep. But oddly, at the time, she had several kids and all grown, and all of those kids were not doing well. One was divorced, one had just lost a spouse, one it just they were not at good places in their life.
Mm.
Within a year of her passing, all of her children had miraculous things happen, and their lives, all of them, are super amazing. I can't tell you how successful they have been in career and love and health.
Mm.
And so I don't know what that means or how that's connected, but that could not have come from my brain. I wasn't even thinking
Right.
about her. I barely knew her. So I do think some dreams come to us from the heavenly realms.
Right. I would agree because there's just some things because I've heard it explained by people on this show. Say, well, it's a it, it's a amalgamation of things that you have seen, but I've had things in my dream that I have not seen, and that to me guarantees the fact that it can't be a true. It might happen sometime, but it's certainly not the majority. All right. So we got some replies back, Samantha, about the bird here. Um, we've got a no. Now I guess we got a whole category here because Mickey V says yes, birded, more patient now. So I think we have a whole category. So that must mean there's an act called birding because she birded. There must be an act called birding. So let's see who else we got here. We got to know. I got a feeling that people are not answering that question. It's okay, you guys. I forgive you. I don't know what that's the answer. Yes, but so in the dream state, if we're in there and something bad starts happening to us, can we check out of that dream and go to another dream?
I don't know if we can go to another dream, but we can definitely wake up from that dream. And so there have been several instances where people have been having a frightening experience and they'll remember or recall in that moment that they're dreaming and they'll call on their higher power, whether
Mm.
that's Jesus, God, Buddha, whatever people's concept of a higher power is. And that tends to work beautifully.
Mm.
I've had several frightening dreams where I'm encountering something negative, and if I call on Jesus or Mother Mary or an angel, I'm instantly taken out of that dream and I tend to wake up in my bed.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that, we do encounter these things. I call them energy
Uh,
vampires.
all right. By the way, shocker for you Catholics out there, Paul McCartney was not talking about Mother Mary of
Yeah, John
Jesus.
Lennon, I know he's talking about his own mom.
Right. Shocker, shocker, or spoiler alert. So, so yeah. So now, but there's another thing called a dream within a dream. How does that happen?
Yeah, you can be having a dream about dreaming. And so, what is that? Is that about, a universe within a universe? I don't think we really know. I usually tend to take those dreams as signs that I need to do something more creative because there's a dream within me that's trying to get out through that dream. So it's more symbolic. And so usually when I have that, I know I've got to do something that to me is creative.
Mm,
So for me, that would be drawing or painting. Baking even is creative to me, but for someone else, it could be woodworking, it could be working on fishing lures, anything that you feel
mm-hmm,
takes you out of that linear time.
mm-hmm,
When you're doing something creative and you lose all sense of time, that's the best thing you can do for body, mind, spirit. And so often that dream within a dream can mean that, or who knows, it could mean that we visited a parallel life.
mm. Um, as we get closer to death, I have met people that are in the hospice, and it seems that's the prime time that they will get visited
Yep.
by somebody or something. It happened to my own brother. I had a brother was in hospice, and another brother already passed away, and he was talking to him like he was standing there, but I think the unseen brother was bidding him, or maybe telling him.
Come.
But does it always have to get to that point to where? Because even isn't it true that children don't see people that aren't there until we talk them out of it? And maybe they do see something. I mean, clearly animals see things. There's so many YouTube videos of animals that are just walking along and all of a sudden they just freak out because they see something that nobody else sees.
Yeah, yeah. And there's been some neat studies on why kids see stuff more than we do. And, surely it's because they don't have the defenses of, oh, it's just your imagination built into them yet. But they've actually done some studies on children's eyes, and their rods and cones aren't fully formed until like any doctors listening, don't roll your eyes because I can't remember if it's 6 or 7 years old. And their peripheral vision is much wider than ours. And if you notice, most of us will see shadowy people or spirits or stuff out of our peripheral vision. So there might be some science behind that as well. But yeah, if you read books like Visions, Trips, and Crowded Rooms, one of my favorite books on what people see before they're dying, it is often their loved ones. My father just passed away this spring after a lengthy battle with Alzheimer's. And the last few years, he had hardly any communication. He could
Mm,
only say wonderful. But this one day, I was talking to him and he was completely lucid for 30 minutes. And he talked about how almost every night when he falls asleep, the ceiling moves and he sees the staircase. And he says, I'm always on the staircase in his dreams, and his father is always on the staircase. And he said, my dog Slugger. Now, my dad talked about this dog he had as a kid, but Slugger died when my dad was 12. And my father now was 83 years old,
mm,
couldn't communicate for years, and suddenly remembered, his dog's name. And he said that the three of us are always on the top of the stairs begging him to come and walk across the bridge. And he squeezed my hand and he said, but I'm not ready. Please tell them I'm not ready.
mm.
And so I do think that sometimes when it's our time and we're not, following the guidance and going over, I think they will come to us either in dreams or just when we're have a foot in both worlds, like in the hospice situation.
Well,
Um,
speaking of a foot in both worlds, how do we know that we're not in the dream now and reality is when we dream?
it very well could be, right? This could be the nightmare
Some would
and our
think.
dreams. I mean, yeah, people have speculated that many, many times. And again, that's what I think is really neat is we don't know. But let's just play with that, right? If this is a dream, and studies have shown that in lucid dreams, you can change the dream, you can change the outcome, you can work on shadow sides of yourself, hidden
Mhm.
fears. If you can do all that in a dream, and this right now is a dream, that means we can change anything we want right now, just with our thoughts and our
Mm.
intention.
Well, Jesus did say, if you say unto this mountain, be thou plucked up and be thou cast into the sea, it shall obey you. He also said, the tongue, being a small member, can set on fire the course of nature. And that's why I always try to watch what I say. All right. There's a question here from Jay. It says, can people be taught to lucid dream, or is it something that you're born with?
No, you can definitely be taught to do it. In fact, the most recent studies that they did, I think it was at Stanford, they took like just freshmen, sophomores in college as kids, and they taught them how to lucid dream. So it's something anyone can do. However, I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's like, oh, take this weekend course and you'll be lucid dreaming by Tuesday. I think it takes a lot of time.
Hmm.
There's a great book if anyone wants an older book. It was written in the 1920s by Oliver Fox. It took him 7 years to have his first lucid dream. So
Hmm.
there are several techniques you can do. There's the wake to bed method. There's a wild method you can do. There's, believe it or not, one of the best ways you can teach yourself to lucid dream, and it sounds so innocuous to me. When you're laying in bed, you do a reverse review of your day. So rather than going over your day, like I woke up this morning
Hmm.
and then I brushed my teeth and then, no, you do a minutia, detailed focused reverse review. So like right before you got into bed, you put your pajamas on. Then before that, you brushed your teeth. Before that, you washed your face. Before that, you watched Yellowstone. Before that, you made dinner. Very
Hmm.
detail oriented. It should take you a good long time. And you finish with when you woke up that morning. And I don't really understand it, but for some reason that helps not only increase dream recall, but lucid dreaming as well.
All right. This is from Australian Ben. Why do so many dreams seem more real than regular life? That's kind of what we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And I wonder if that is because if you to me these I call them soul travel dream, but these unique dream experiences that I've had and that I'm sharing of other people, famous people, well-known people and regular average people have had. To me, if you look at the details and the colors and the vividness of them, it almost reminds me of near-death experiencers. You know how near-death experiencers will say there were colors that we don't even have
Mm-hmm.
here. I
Yeah.
can't explain it.
And more
The light
vibrant
was
and
so
more
bright.
vibrant. Hmm.
Yeah, and when I have these very beautiful, wonderful dream experiences, that's how I feel. And talking to people through the years about their soul travel dream experiences, they say the same thing. It was realer than real. And so it makes me wonder if, as I've said before, we aren't visiting the other side, and that's why it has that lucidity and that vividness to
Hmm.
it.
Omega says, "Are we all connected? If so, how?"
Yes, I do believe that we are all connected, and I think it's because we all have that spark of the creator within us, and I think that's what links us all together. I mean, Carl Jung would call it the collective unconscious, but even if you look at the remote viewing data that the CIA finally declassified, you can find it really just by googling it. Blackvault.com has it as well. But if you look at especially their early remote viewing research, they show that all known data is out there. That's one of their graphs says that very clearly. All known data is out there because we are all connected. So there's been so much research that shows this. We're all connected. And I think that there are these energetic cords, kind of like umbilical cords that go out between us and anyone that we love. And so that's why I think if you're I don't know, driving around and you think about your wife and then she just calls you within 5 minutes and for no reason, not like, oh, pick up such and such at the store. I feel like because you guys have that connection of love, you tugged on that cord.
Mm.
And I think we can do that even in the dream state. I have stories in there of people who have visited loved ones who live on the other side of the country and offered them comfort or just a shoulder to cry on. And the next day, that person that they visited in their dream will call them and say, I had the craziest dream where you came and visited me and I just talked to you and it felt
Hmm.
so great.
Hmm.
And so I do think we're all connected.
So people should not necessarily fear their dreams.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Even the nightmarish dreams that we have are there to teach us.
Mm.
They really are. And I believe that about even just going beyond dreams. I believe that about all negative experiences really are just our teacher. I mean, look at the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell described, or look at what's the original word for Satan? It's advisor. It's I'm sorry, adversary, right?
Yeah, he's
So
an
I think
adversary, right?
every negative experience is really just to help us grow.
Mm. By the way, earlier we were talking about children. Somebody in the live chat put it is called sudden infants,
SIDS,
sudden
sudden infant death
syndrome.
syndrome.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly right.
sudden infant. Now it's sad, sudden adult. And there's a reason for that, but we're not going to talk on this show because I don't want to get kicked off this program. But um, if you're in a lucid dream, are you able to edit the dream until you get the outcome you want?
Yes, you can. Again, it's not necessarily going to happen the first time you have that experience, but it does happen if you're able to consciously write about your dream during the day, talk about your dream, and then if you have a negative experience in a lucid dream, you can daydream during the day and think about how you want that dream to change. I tell a story in there. It's a pretty well-known story, but there's a man has this lucid dream frequently where he's running from someone, and he's got this actual ball and chain around his ankle, so it's making it really hard for him to run from this person. And it's that, I don't know if you've had those nightmares where what's going on isn't so scary, but you feel so terrified. And so he talks about how he knew this person was going to catch him and kill him. So he worked with a therapist, and she helped him reframe the dream and reprogram it. So eventually, when he had that dream again, he was able to stop running and turn around and face the man chasing him, and it was himself. And
Mm-hmm.
he stopped, and the guy wasn't holding a knife or a gun or anything scary. It was him. And he said, "Oh, thank God you stopped running." He said, "Hold on, I've been trying to do this for months." And he kneels down and pulls out a key and unlocks the ball and chain. And he realizes that the ball, connected to the chain around his ankle, said worries. And he said, "Now we're good to go." And he woke up and he never had the dream again.
In the book of Daniel, there's this king named Nebuchadnezzar who had his dream, and he really wanted to know what it meant, and so he asked all his soothsayers. He killed a bunch. He's going to kill them all. Okay, all the prophets and everybody says, "Somebody going to tell me this dream, or you're all going to be dead." Well, Daniel was able to interpret his dream. So I'm wondering, and we had those scriptures up earlier about God giving dreams. Do you think it's kind of built in that some dreams you will not know until you tell somebody else that dream?
Yes. Yes. And sometimes people, you might have had this too. Sometimes you can share a dream with someone, and it's not even until you give voice to it that you realize, oh, it's so obvious to you. But sometimes it's not until you realize it through talking about it and sharing it, or just having it someone else's perspective. But I
Mhm.
think you have to be careful who you talk to your dreams about, right? I know, like in my family of origin, like my parents and my sisters, I used to always talk about my dreams, and they'd roll their eyes and be like, "Oh, here she goes again." So I had to find friends who were also into
Mhm.
dreams that I could talk to about it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do think that that's really important.
Well, see, that's the way I am with Bigfoot, man. You just can't tell everybody about Bigfoot. You got to you got to find people that understand that he's out
Right.
there and they're running in packs, man. I mean, they so but
I
yeah.
think I think there's portals.
Well, there you go.
I think they come through
I
portals.
think they do too. Because they certainly has nothing to do with dreams. But look, there are footprints that just stop and disappear.
Yeah.
So it looks to me like they're going through portholes too as well. I'm wondering if we could go through a dream portal. Somebody just asked the question, can we create a dream body? I guess that might be sort of an astral projection type of question. Can
Mhm.
our dream person go out and do things?
Yes, yeah, yeah, and I have some stories in the book about that. There's one story that I didn't put in the book. This woman was trying to take a nap during the day, and she couldn't fall asleep, and she popped out of her body, and she was so shocked, and she's looking at her body, and I think she was 48, 50, and this was like in the 1930s. So she had no Botox or filler. And she's looking at her body, and she's like, "Wow, I'm really getting older." And she goes into the bathroom, and she tries to turn on the light, and her hand, just like a ghost, goes through the light switch. But she realizes that her body's glowing. And so she looks in the mirror by the glow of the light, and she's a young woman again. And her hair isn't, salt and pepper with gray. It's beautiful, thick, and luscious. She has no ring. She's like, oh my gosh, I have to go show my husband how beautiful I am. And so she rushes out down the hallway, and this woman that she'd never seen before, who was also see through and glowing, stopped her and said, no, you have to go back to your body. And I just found that was with the oh gosh, the Society of Psychic Research
Mhm.
recorded that story. But yeah, there's a lot of stories of people who astral travel either consciously on purpose or spontaneously in dreams. And again, it's like the near death experience where they appear younger than they are in real life.
Mhm. Well, what you don't want to do is dream about a fire because you could spontaneously combust, and that wouldn't be a good scene right there.
No.
Um, Jade asked the question: do you practice dream interpretation?
I don't know if I practice dream interpretation, but I always try to listen to people's dreams.
Mhm. Do you feel like you're a better person? You have this book we have in our background here. Do you feel like you're a more rounded person by pursuing dreams and dream activity?
I don't know if I'm a better person, but I will tell you this. When I don't, like during COVID, I had a very hard time remembering my dreams. That whole lockdown period,
Hmm.
I didn't do well with that. I need to get out and go to the gym and extra. I need to go out. And so being home was very hard for me, and I had a hard time remembering my dreams, and it made me feel very disconnected from myself, and from really my spirituality. I mean, certainly going to church helps me feel that, but there's
Hmm.
something about these dream experiences that makes me feel like I do go home at night, and it makes me feel very connected and whole and centered again.
Hmm. Do you
It
go to
gives a
church?
lot of meaning and
Do,
purpose.
do you go to church now?
Yeah, I do. I
Is
just
it,
I don't tell I'm Catholic. I don't tell my priest necessarily what I
uh-oh.
do.
Uh-oh, I said that Mary thing. I hope I didn't offend you on that one.
Oh, not at all. Gosh,
But
no.
you already knew that though.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So you don't find that dreams and dream interpretation and trying to remember dreams conflicts with any of your religious teaching.
Oh, please, everything I do conflicts with my religious teaching. I mean, I love to do yoga. I'm a Reiki master. In the Catholic Catechism, that's all a no-no. So
Hmm.
everything I do is against my church's teachings. But there's a lot that you could say that the church does that's against itself too, right?
Yeah,
So
I'm glad you said that because I was going to say there's a couple no nos that they got going on too.
yeah, I go there because it's what I know. It's the continuity of it. I love that it's the same words that have been said throughout the centuries across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'm very open to all different faiths. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's something beautiful in every single faith, and you just have to find the one that speaks to you. Um,
We were talking about the hole that appears to be in the body, and I suggest it's a spiritual one. Do they ever tell you at your church that Jesus fits directly into that hole?
um, Yes, but we focus so much on the saints as well, and our guardian angel. There's a lot of talk about your guardian angel
Hmm.
being with you and filling that hole,
Hmm.
and the saints intervening for you. So we do differ a little bit in that, but definitely Jesus. And our priest was just saying a couple of weeks ago in his homily, don't forget wherever two or more are gathered, Jesus is there. And so he was talking about the power of communal prayer, and I
Hmm.
think there is something really important about that helps fill that hole when you pray together.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Well, Samantha Fey, we're right at the end of the broadcast. So where can people get your book?
Well, I hope you can find it anywhere books are sold, and it should be in most bookstores. If not, of course, it's on Amazon. It's at Barnes and Noble. It's at Target. You can get a signed copy on my website, samanthafey.com.
Okay. Hey, well, I appreciate you coming on. And my final two words is dream on.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you so much.